One day, the wife comes home flaunting a dazzling diamond ring. "Where did you get that?" her husband asks, curious. "Oh," she replies, "my boss and I played the lottery, and we won, so I bought it with my share of the winnings." A week later, she walks in wearing a luxurious, shimmering fur coat. "Where did you get that coat?" her husband asks again. "Well, we won the lottery again, so I used my share to buy it," she says, smiling. Another week passes and she drives up in a sleek, fire-red Ferrari. You guessed it, more lottery winnings. That evening, she asks her husband to draw her a nice warm bath while she gets ready. When she steps into the bathroom, she finds the tub barely filled, just enough to cover the drain plug. "What on earth is this?" she asks, confused. Her husband looks up and says, "Well, we wouldn't want to get your lottery ticket wet, now would we?" A mother had 3 daughters getting married and asked them to send a postcard from their honeymoons with a few words about their experience. The first daughter's card from Hawaii read Nescafe, and the mother realized it meant good till the last drop from the coffee jar. The second daughter's card from Vermont read Rothmans, which the mother understood as extra long, king size, from her husband's cigarette pack. The third daughter took a month to send her postcard from Cape Town. It read, South African Airways. The mother found the ad, which said, 10 times a day, 7 days a week, both ways. The mother fainted. Sarah, a recently widowed lady, was sitting on a beach towel at Cocoa Beach, Florida. She looked up and noticed that a man her age had walked up, placed his blanket on the sand nearby, and began reading a book. Smiling, she attempted to strike up a conversation with him. "Hello, sir. How are you?" "Fine, thank you," he responded and turned back to his book. "I love the beach." "Do you come here often?" Sarah asked. "First time since my wife passed away last year," he replied, and again turned back to his book. "Do you live around here?" Sarah asked. "Yes, I live over in Suntree," he answered and then resumed reading. Trying to find a topic of common interest, Sarah persisted. "Do you like cats?" With that, the man threw his book down, jumped off his blanket onto hers, tore off both their swimsuits, and gave her the most passionate ride of her life. As the cloud of sand began to settle, Sarah gasped and asked the man, "How did you know that was what I wanted?" The man replied, "How did you know my name was Katz?" Papu goes to her first show at an art gallery and is looking at the paintings. One is a huge canvas that has black with yellow blobs of paint splattered all over it. The next painting is a murky gray color that has drips of purple paint streaked across it. Papu walks over to the artist and says, "I don't understand your paintings." "I paint what I feel inside me," explains the artist. Papu thinks for a while and said, "Have you ever tried ENO?" 3 housewives got fed up of cooking, so the 3 wives, a British, a French, and a Russian, decided not to cook for 3 days. At the end of the 3 days, they met again. The British said, "The first day I didn't see anything new. The second day, he went to the kitchen and started cooking." The French said, "The first day I didn't see anything. The second day, he took me to a restaurant." The Russian said, "The first day I didn't see anything. The second day I didn't see anything either, but the third day I could see a little bit with my left eye." Yesterday, I received a friend request from a young, attractive guy who looked about 19 or 20 years old. Curiosity got the best of me. I wanted to know why someone so young would want to be my friend on Facebook, so I accepted it. Almost immediately, he started messaging me. He called me beautiful and asked my age. Now, I'm not a liar, so I told him the truth and reminded him that I'm a bit older than him. But hey, a little flattery never hurt anyone, so I'd let him talk. We chatted for a while, and before long, he asked if we could talk about adult things. I said, "Sure, why not?" Then he said, "Thank you, babe. You start?" So I did. I told him all about my arthritis and how badly my knees hurt some days. I explained how my back acts up whenever it's cold outside. I shared about my insomnia and how it keeps me up at night. And of course, I couldn't leave out my pacemaker. An essential adult topic, right? Oh, and I made sure to mention my trusty laxatives and my high-quality dentures. I was as honest as I could be about adult things, pouring my heart out. But for some reason, he blocked me. I honestly can't understand why. A senior citizen, thrilled with his brand new Corvette convertible, roared out of the dealership and onto I-94, embracing the wind through his gray hair. The exhilaration of speed took over as he pushed the car to 80 miles per hour, then 100 and finally 120 miles per hour. But his fun was interrupted when he noticed flashing lights and a wailing siren in his rearview mirror. Realizing he couldn't outrun the law, he wisely pulled over. The state trooper approached and, glancing at his watch, said, "Sir, my shift ends in 30 minutes. It's Friday. If you can give me a reason for speeding that I've never heard before, I'll let you go." After a moment of thought, the elderly man replied with a grin, "Years ago, my wife ran off with a state trooper. I thought you were bringing her back." The trooper burst into laughter and replied, "Have a good day, sir," before letting him go on his way. A guy walks into a bar with his cat, but the bartender immediately says, "Sorry, no animals allowed in here." To the bartender's surprise, the cat speaks up, "Hey, I'm tired of this discrimination. Just give me a drink, okay?" The bartender rolls his eyes and says, "Oh great, not another guy with the old talking cat ventriloquist act. Both of you, out." The man quickly protests, No, this isn't a trick. Tell you what, I'll leave and walk around the block. You can talk to Whiskers yourself." The man walks out and the bartender watches him turn the corner. The cat flicks its tail and says, "Now, about that drink." The bartender is stunned but quickly recovers. "Wow, okay. Drinks are on the house for you. Hey, could you do me a favor? My wife works next door at the cafe and she'd get such a kick out of this. Here's $10. Go in, order a coffee and keep the change." "Sure thing," says the cat, taking the money and strolling out the door. 10 minutes pass, and the cat hasn't returned. The owner comes back and asks, "Where's Whiskers?" Concerned, both of them go looking for the cat. As they approach the cafe, they spot Whiskers in the alley, lounging on a pile of cash and flirting with a fancy Persian cat. The owner shouts, "Whiskers, what are you doing? You've never done this before." Whiskers yawns and says, "Hey, I've never had money before." An elderly couple had just mastered the art of texting on their cell phones. The wife, ever the romantic, loved adding a touch of sweetness to everything she did, while her husband was more of a practical, straight-to-the-point kind of man. One afternoon, while out having coffee with a friend, the wife decided to send her husband a heartfelt message. She typed, "If you're asleep, send me your dreams. If you're laughing, send me your smile. If you're eating, send me a taste. If you're drinking, send me a sip. If you're crying, send me your tears. I love you." A few moments later, her phone buzzed. Her husband had responded, "I'm on the toilet. What do you need?" There was a man who spent his entire life saving every penny he could. He was notorious for his tight grip on his money, valuing it more than almost anything else. One day, he fell seriously ill and was informed by his doctors that his time was short. Knowing this, he made a peculiar request to his wife. "When I die, I want you to take all my money and bury it with me. I want to take it all to the afterlife." His wife, knowing that this would leave her with very little, promised to honor his request. The man eventually passed away, and his funeral was held at their local church. As he lay in the casket, the widow sat beside their best friend, dressed in black. Just before the undertakers were about to close the casket, the widow suddenly spoke up. "Hold on a moment," she said, grabbing a shoebox she had brought with her. She placed the box in the casket, and the undertakers then sealed it and began to roll it away. Her friend, puzzled, asked, "What was in that shoebox?" The widow replied, "He wanted to be buried with all his money, so I put it in there." Her friend was astonished. "Are you serious? You buried that miser with all his fortune?" "Yes," she said. "I promised him I would, and as a good Christian, I couldn't lie. I put the money in the casket just as he requested." "But how could all that money fit in such a small box?" her friend asked. "Well," the widow explained with a smile, "it was a bit of a challenge, so I gathered it all together, deposited it into my account, and wrote him a check." A wife sends a text message to her husband. "Honey, don't forget to pick up some bread on your way home from work. Oh, and your girlfriend Valerie says hi." Husband texts back, "Who's Valerie?" Wife replies, "Nobody. I just wanted to make sure you'd read my message." Husband responds, "Well, I'm actually with Valerie right now, so I thought you saw us." Wife shocked, "What? Where are you?" Husband, "Right outside the bakery, by the door." Wife rushing, "Stay there, I'm coming right now." 5 minutes later, she texts him again, "I'm here at the bakery." "Where are you?" Husband, "I'm still at work. Now that you're there, why don't you grab the bread and bring it home?" An award should go to the Midwest Airlines gate agent in Chicago for being witty and sharp, while still making her point when confronted by a passenger who probably deserved to ride in the baggage compartment. For anyone who has ever had to deal with a difficult customer, this one's for you. A busy Midwest Airlines flight was cancelled, and a single agent was left rebooking a long line of frustrated travelers. Out of nowhere, an irate passenger shoved his way to the desk, slapped his ticket down, and barked, "I need to be on this flight, and it has to be first class." The agent remained calm and replied, "I'm sorry, sir. I'll be happy to assist you, but I need to help these folks first. Once I've taken care of them, I'm sure we'll work something out." Not satisfied with her response, the man raised his voice so everyone in the terminal could hear. "Do you even know who I am?" Without missing a beat, the agent picked up the microphone for the public address system. "May I have your attention, please?" she announced, her voice echoing through the terminal. "We have a passenger at gate 22 who does not know who he is. If anyone can assist him in identifying himself, please come to gate 22 immediately." The line of passengers erupted in laughter. The man, now red-faced, leaned in and hissed, "F*** you." Still unfazed, the agent smiled sweetly and said, "I'm sorry, sir, but you'll need to get in line for that as well." An elderly couple was enjoying their afternoon at a cozy cafe when they noticed an old man slowly making his way across the street. The husband leaned in close to his wife and said, "Poor fellow, he must have terrible arthritis to be walking like that." His wife, shaking her head, replied, "No, dear, that's not arthritis. I'm sure it's old-time rheumatism causing him to move so stiffly." The debate between them grew, and finally the husband couldn't resist his curiosity. He walked over to the old man and politely asked, "Excuse me, sir, my wife and I were watching you cross the street and we were wondering, do you suffer from arthritis? I thought you did, but my wife here insists it's rheumatism. Which one of us is correct?" The old man paused for a moment, then chuckled softly and said, "Actually, both of you are wrong." Surprised, the husband asked, "Both of us? How can that be?" With a twinkle in his eye, the old man replied, "Well, you were wrong about the arthritis, your wife was wrong about the rheumatism, and I was wrong when I thought I just needed to pass gas." A preacher was wrapping up his fiery temperance sermon. With great conviction, he declared, "If I had all the beer in the world, I'd take it and throw it into the river." Raising his voice, he continued, "And if I had all the wine in the world, I'd take it and throw it into the river." Finally, with arms lifted high, he thundered, And if I had all the whiskey in the world, I'd take it and throw it into the river." He sat down, and a solemn silence filled the church. O'Malley, the song leader who had dozed off during the sermon, stood up carefully and with a grin announced, "For our closing hymn, let's sing hash 365, Shall We Gather at the River." At 3 o'clock in the morning, a man and his wife were jolted awake by a loud, persistent pounding on their front door. Groaning, the man reluctantly got up and went to see who it was. Standing in the pouring rain was a drunken stranger, swaying unsteadily. "Could you give me a push?" the man slurred, water dripping off his soaked clothes. The husband stared at him in disbelief. "Absolutely not!" he barked. "It's 3 in the morning." He slammed the door shut and stomped back to bed, muttering angrily under his breath. "Who was that?" his wife asked, still half asleep. "Just some drunk guy wanting a push," he grumbled. "And did you help him?" she pressed. "Help him? Of course not. It's the middle of the night and it's pouring out there." His wife sat up, turning on the bedside lamp. "You've got a short memory," she said sternly. "Don't you remember when our car broke down 3 months ago? Those 2 kind strangers stopped to help us without hesitation. How can you refuse to do the same?" The man sighed heavily, knowing she was right. Grumbling under his breath, he got dressed and trudged back out into the storm. Stepping into the cold rain, he called into the darkness. "Hello? Are you still out there?" "Yeah, I'm here," came the faint response. "Do you still need a push?" the man yelled. "Yes, please," the stranger replied eagerly. Squinting into the gloom, the husband shouted, "Where exactly are you?" "Over here," the voice called back. "On the swing." A man stepped out to the street and flagged down a passing taxi. As he got in, the cabbie smiled and said, "Perfect timing. You're just like Brian." "Brian? Who's Brian?" the passenger asked. "Brian Sullivan," the cabbie replied. "He was the guy who did everything right, just like how I showed up when you needed a cab. That kind of thing happened to Brian all the time." The passenger chuckled. "No one's that lucky. Everyone's got their share of bad days." "Not Brian," the cabbie insisted. "He was the perfect guy, a top athlete. He could have won the Grand Slam in tennis. He could have played golf with the pros. He sang like an opera star and danced like he belonged on Broadway. You should have heard him play the piano." "Sounds like quite the man," the passenger mused. The cabbie nodded eagerly. "Oh, he was. And smart, too. He had a memory like a computer. Never forgot a birthday, knew all about gourmet food, and even knew which fork to use. He could fix anything. Me? I blow a fuse, and the whole block loses power. But Brian, he had the golden touch." "Wow, he must have been something," the passenger said, shaking his head. "There's more," the cabbie continued. "He knew every shortcut, could avoid any traffic jam. Not like me. I'm always stuck. And when it came to women, Brian knew exactly how to make them feel special. He'd never argue, even when they were wrong. His clothes were always spotless, shoes shined like mirrors. He was flawless. No one could ever compare to Brian Sullivan." The passenger, thoroughly impressed, asked, "So how did you meet this incredible guy?" The cabbie glanced in the rearview mirror and grinned. "Oh, I never met Brian. He died. But I married his widow." A married couple in their early 60s were celebrating their 40th wedding anniversary in a cozy, romantic restaurant. Out of the blue, a tiny yet enchanting fairy appeared on their table. She said, "For being such an exemplary married couple, and for your enduring love, I will grant each of you one wish." The wife immediately responded, "Oh, I would love to travel around the world with my darling husband." With a wave of her magic wand, the fairy made 2 tickets for the Queen Mary to appear in her hands. The husband thought for a moment and said, "While this is incredibly romantic, such an opportunity is rare. "I'm sorry, my love, but I wish to have a wife 30 years younger than me." The wife and the fairy were both dismayed, but a wish is a wish. The fairy waved her wand again, and poof, the husband became 92 years old. Moral: men who are ungrateful should remember that fairies are female. And before you go, here's the deal. I tell jokes on YouTube, but this is no joke. For every 1,000 subscribers and likes on this video, I will find 50+ homeless people and donate $100 each to them. Hit subscribe and let's spread laughs and kindness. Thank you.